Hello everyone and welcome to this latest episode of Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and to another instalment of Short Story Saturday. And yes, as I like to think as usual, we have a nice story for you. Let's talk a little bit about the author. The author of today's short story is John Galsworthy. You probably know him. He was born in 1867. He was an English novelist and playwright. You know him most likely from his most famous works, the Four-Side Saga, which was published between 1906 and 1921. He attended school at Harrow and went up, I should say, using the parlance of the time, went up to Oxford and later trained to be a barrister. Barrister, not barista, for American friends of mine and international friends of mine, I suppose, who are not sure what a barrister is. It is a type of lawyer. It's the ones you see like Rumpel of the Bailey, the ones who wear the black robes and the wigs on their head. These are barristers. I'm sure most of you know that, but I just thought I'd say in case you didn't. He didn't really feel suited to the legal life, so he decided to take a position with his family's shipping firm and travel the world. And during his travels, he met Joseph Conrad, who was actually working on a ship at the time, so that's pretty cool. John actually started an affair with the wife of his first cousin, so that's not too cool. But 10 years later, she got a divorce and they married, so I guess it's kind of nice they ended up together anyway. With the outbreak of World War I, John worked in France as a hospital orderly after he was turned down for active service. Twice he was nominated for a knighthood, and twice he turned it down, saying that a writer's reward comes from the writing itself. John fought hard for animal rights. He was also a humanitarian, a member of the Humanitarian League. He also opposed hunting and supported the League for the Prohibition of Cruel Sports. So I guess that would have been things like cockfighting and whatnot. So he's certainly gone up in my estimation as a great bloke for supporting such causes. His biggest accolade really is probably winning the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1932. Though unfortunately he was too ill in order to attend the ceremony, and sadly 7 weeks later he passed away. But being true to life, or true to the life he had lived, he donated his Nobel Prize money to charity, and specifically a charity to help and support writers. Our story today is called The Broken Boot, and it comes from a collection of 16 short stories called Captures, which was actually published in the year, or at least the edition I've got was published in the year of John Galsworthy's death. Right then, let's go. Here we go. The Broken Boot. The actor Gilbert Caister, who had been out for 6 months, emerged from his East Coast seaside lodging about noon in the day after the opening of Shooting the Rapids on tour, in which he was playing Dr. Dominic in the last act. A salary of £4 a week would not, he was conscious, remake his fortunes, but a certain jauntiness had returned to the gait and manner of one employed again at last. Fixing his monocle, he stopped before a fishmonger's and, with a faint smile on his face, regarded a lobster. Ages since he had eaten a lobster. One could long for a lobster without paying, but the pleasure was not solid enough to detain him. He moved up street and stopped again before a tailor's window. Together with the actual tweeds, in which he could so easily fancy himself refitted, he could see a reflection of himself in the faded brown suit wangled out of the production of Marmaduke Mandeville the year before the war. The sunlight in this damned town was very strong, very hard on seams and buttonholes, on knees and elbows, yet he received the ghost of aesthetic pleasure from the reflected elegance of a man long fed only twice a day, of an eyeglass well rimmed out from a soft brown eye, of a velour hat salved from the production of Educating Simon in 1912, and in front of the window he removed that hat, for under it was his new phenomenon, not yet quite evaluated, his mèche blanche. Was it an asset or the beginning of the end? It reclined backwards on the right side, conspicuous in his dark hair, above that shadowy face always interesting to Gilbert Caister. They said it came from atrophy, or the something nerve, an effect of the war, or of undernourished tissue. Rather distinguished perhaps, but he walked on and became conscious that he had passed a face he knew. Turning, he saw it also turned on a short and dapper figure, a face rosy, bright, round, with an air of cherubic knowledge, as of a getter-up of amateur theatricals. Bryce Green, by George. Caister, it is. Haven't seen you since you left the old camp. Remember what sport we had over Gotta Grampus? By Jove. I am glad to see you. Doing anything with yourself? Come and have lunch with me. Bryce Green, the wealthy patron, the moving spirit of entertainment in that South Coast convalescent camp, and drawling slightly, Caister answered, Shall be delighted, but within him something did not drawl. By God, you're going to have a feed, my boy. And elegantly threadbare, roundabout and dapper, the two walked side by side. Know this place? Let's go in here. Phyllis cocktails for my friend Mr. Caister and myself, and caviar on biscuits. Mr. Caister is playing here. You must go and see him. The girl who served the cocktails and the caviar looked up at Caister with interested blue eyes. Precious. He had been out for 6 months. Nothing of a part, he drawled. Took it to fill a gap. And below his waistcoat, the gap echoed, Yes, and it will take some filling. Bring your cocktail along, Caister. We'll go into the little further room. There'll be nobody there. What shall we have? A lobster? And Caister murmured, I love lobsters. It's very interesting to note that the text here spells lobster Lobstahs. So, yeah, I like that. We had some funny spelling in last week's work as well, didn't we? Anyway, very fine and large here. And how are you, Caister? So awfully glad to see you. Only real actor we had. Thanks, said Caister. I'm all right. And he thought, he's a damned amateur, but a nice little man. Sit here. Waiter, bring us a good big lobster and a salad, and then a small fillet of beef with potatoes, fried crisp, and a bottle of my special hock. And a rum omelette. Plenty of rum and sugar. Twig? And Caister thought, Thank God I do. They had sat down opposite each other at one of the two small tables in the little recessed room. Luck, said Bryce Green. Luck, replied Caister, and the cocktail trickling down him echoed, Luck. And what do you think of the state of the drama? Oh ho, a question after his own heart, balancing his monocle by a Swedish smile on the opposite side of his mouth. Caister drawled his answer, Quite too bally awful. Yes, said Bryce Green, nobody with any genius, is there? And Caister thought, nobody with any money. Have you been playing anything great? You were so awfully good in Gotta Grampus. Nothing particular. I've been, rather slack. And with their feel around his waist, his trousers seemed to echo, slack. Ah, said Bryce Green, here we are. Do you like claws? Thanks, anything. To eat until warned by the pressure of his waist against his trousers. Ha! What a feast! And what a flow of his own tongue suddenly released on drama, music, art, mellow and critical, stimulated by the round eyes and interjections of his little provincial host. By Jove, Caister, you've got a mèche blanche. I've never noticed. I'm awfully interested in mèche blanches. Don't think me too frightfully rude, but did it come suddenly? No, gradually. And how do you account for it? Try starvation, trembled on Caister's lips. I don't. I think it's ripping. Have some more omelette. I often wish I'd gone on the regular stage myself. Must be a topping life if one has talent like you. Topping? Have a cigar. Waiter. Coffee and cigars. I shall come and see you tonight. Suppose you'll be here a week? Topping. The laughter and applause. Mr. Caister's rendering left nothing to be desired. It's something, and it's something in the true spirit of something. Silence recalled him from his rings of smoke. Bryce Green was sitting with cigar held out, and mouth a little open and bright eyes round as pebbles, fixed on some object near the floor, past the corner of the tablecloth. Had he burnt his mouth? The eyelids fluttered. He looked at Caister, licked his lips like a dog, nervously, and said, I say, old chap, don't you think me a beast, but are you at all, rocky? I mean, if I can be of any service, don't hesitate. Old acquaintance, don't you know, and all that. His eyes rolled out again towards the object, and Caister followed them. Out there above the carpet he saw it. His own boot. It dangled, because his knees were crossed, 6 inches off the ground, split right across, twice between lace and toe cap. Quite. He knew it. A boot left him from the roll of Bertie Carstairs in the dupe, just before the war. Good boots, his only pair, except the boots of Dr. Dominic, which he was nursing, and from the boot he looked back at Bryce Green, sleek and concerned. A drop, black when it left his heart, suffused his eye behind the monocle. He smiled. His smile curled bitterly. He said, "Not at all, thanks. Why?" "Oh, nothing. It just occurred to me." His eyes, but Caister had withdrawn the boot. Bryce Green paid the bill and rose. "Old chap, if you'll excuse me, engagement at 2:30, so awfully glad to have seen you. Goodbye." "Goodbye," said Caister, "and thanks." He was alone, and chin on hand, he stared through his monocle into an empty coffee cup, alone with his heart, his boot, his life to come. "And what have you been in lately, Mr. Caister?" "Nothing very much lately. Of course I played almost everything." "Quite so. Perhaps you'll leave your address." "Can't say anything definite, I'm afraid. I should be willing to rehearse on approval, or if I could read the part." "Thank you. Afraid we haven't got as far as that." "No?" "Quite." "Well, I shall hear from you, perhaps." And Caister could see his own eyes looking at the manager. God, what a look! A topping life, a dog's life, cadging for work, a life of drafty waiting, of concealed beggary, of terrible depressions, of want of food. The waiter came skating round as if he desired to clear. Must go. 2 young women had come in and were sitting at the other table between him and the door. He saw them look at him, and his sharpened senses caught the whisper. "Sure, in the last act. Don't you see his mèche blanche?" "Oh, yes, of course. Isn't it? Wasn't he?" Caister straightened his back, his smile crept out. He fixed his monocle. They had spotted his Dr. Dominic. "If you haven't quite finished, sir, may I clear?" "Certainly, I'm going." He gathered himself and rose. The young women were gazing up, elegant, with faint smile. He passed them close, managing so that they could not see his broken boot. I really like that. Obviously, it's quite sad. In case you're wondering, I had to look it up myself. A mèche blanche is a white streak in the hair, and I'm guessing it's caused from the stress that he experienced during the war. Yeah, it's sad, I suppose, that this man, who obviously was at one point quite a good actor, has now been reduced to such circumstances. But it's a nice story. And it's really my first introduction to John Galsworthy, and I have the Forsyte Saga on my reading list, and I really must get to it at some point. But you all know what it's like. It's not very easy. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story, and I hope it encourages you, of course, to look up some of these stories and maybe read other things from these authors. The link, of course, will be below for the book that I read from, and I wish you all a fantastic rest of your weekend. See you soon. Bye for now.
Better